Hi everyone, it's Russell Lowe speaking, and in this tutorial we'll look at creating a shadow under the Cybertruck so that it grounds the Cybertruck more onto the surface of the Earth here. Quickly before we do that, let's rename this just to color and make sure that it's just affecting the color channel. And so let's create a new layer. So we'll create a new layer, and you could create this layer. We're going to hand draw the shadow onto this layer. You could create it sort of almost anywhere. If you create it directly below all of these adjustment layers here, which are clipped to this layer though, all of these will affect just the shadow layer and they'll stop affecting the Cybertruck layer. So we don't want to put it in between here and here. So it could be on the top here, or we could drag it to the bottom here. And this is where I'm going to put it because I'm going to use a darken sort of effect to it. And you'll see that in just a second. And that'll darken the layer background. So let's change this to shadow. And make sure it's selected. And then go into my brush. And you can see I've got the black foreground color, but I'm not sure that that's necessary when we're using a darken mode. Might be. So the normal mode is what you'd most likely be seeing, but if you go to darken, what it does is actually just increases the darkness of the layer that you're painting on. And remember, we're painting on the background layer here. I've changed the opacity right down to 14 so that any sort of mark that I make on here doesn't have a huge effect, and that's because I want it to be quite subtle in the end. I can use the bracket keys on my keyboard to make the brush larger or smaller. I can do that up here as well, so scale it up and down here, but it's actually pretty good to use the bracket keys because it can be quite dynamic. So let's just sort of swipe across from here a little bit, sort of underneath. Remember, the shadow's coming from right to left. I have to draw over it several times to get it to add up to sort of something dark, so you can hear me sort of clicking away. Just using a mouse for this, so it's pretty clumsy. It would be nice to use a tablet to do this. Anyway, here I go. There we go. If I turn that off, you can see it really does float. If I turn it on, even a pretty rough effort actually makes that stand out or root it into the ground a lot better. I might actually add another shadow layer that's just going to affect the tires here, just the very bottom of them. They should probably be receiving less light bouncing out, just at the very bottom. So let me again create another layer. In this case though, I'm going to bring it above at the very top, and I'll call the shadow tires, and then I'll right click on here and say create clip. I want to clip that to just below. Create clipping mask, and so that's just clipping it to the layer below. So right click and I can release the clipping mask so that it affects everything, but with the same settings selected, darken and a low opacity. I'll just come in here and just give it a little bit on the bottom, maybe this inside edge too, and turn that off, turn it on, and you can sort of see the difference there. I might have done a little bit too much on the front one, so if I go over here to my eraser tool, Remember, I'm just on this layer here. I'll turn my eraser brush down. That's a bit better. Okay, so that's creating a shadow under the Cybertruck on the background and a shadow on the tyres just on the Cybertruck itself, and it starts to really firm this thing into place. So thanks for watching. There's one more tutorial to go, which is where I'm going to show you a nice trick for getting rid of these people in the background, and then we're done. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the last one.